I don't shake hands with Blacky. The words landed soft. Too soft. Like something rotten dropped on expensive carpet. Aurelia Knox stood there, hands still extended across the glass table. Her fingers didn't tremble. Her face didn't shift. She just held the position, waiting, measuring, letting the room absorb what had just been said out loud. The billionaire sat back in his chair like a man who'd never been told no. Rhett Calderon. Real estate empire stretching from Miami to Seattle. Defense contracts nobody talked about. The kind of wealth that made mayors return calls. He wasn't looking at her hand anymore. He was looking past it. Around the table, 6 men in tailored suits froze mid-breath. One cleared his throat but said nothing. Another checked his phone like it had suddenly become urgent. Silence wrapped around the room like plastic over a crime scene. Aurelia lowered her hand. Understood, she said. Her voice didn't crack. Didn't rise. Didn't beg for clarification or apology. She pulled out the chair nearest the door and sat down, placing her tablet flat on the table in front of her. Hi friend, before we continue the story, kindly tell us where are you watching from. And hit that subscribe button now for you to get more, and I have something new for you tomorrow. Stay tuned. Thanks. Let's continue. The presentation resumed like nothing happened. Rhett clicked his remote. A projection lit up behind him, blue graphs, rising profit margins, infrastructure deals tied to ports in Los Angeles and freight routes through Dallas. His voice was smooth again. Practiced. He spoke about logistics like poetry, numbers like prophecy. Nobody looked at Aurelia. Not once. She didn't take notes during his speech. Didn't nod. Didn't smile. She just watched. Her eyes moved from face to face, lingering on who spoke and who stayed quiet. She noticed which men leaned in when Rhett made a joke. She noticed who laughed too quickly. 42 minutes passed. Not one question directed her way. When the first break came, coffee arrived on a silver tray. Cups were handed out in order of seating. Hers came last. The assistant didn't make eye contact. Aurelia took the cup. Said nothing. But her thumb brushed the edge of her tablet. And somewhere far from that room, something began to move. What just started that nobody in that room could see yet? The second half of the meeting felt longer. Rhett paced now, his confidence growing with every slide. He talked about a New York expansion, private terminals, tax incentives, political relationships that wouldn't be a problem. His tone suggested doors opened for him without knocking. Aurelia sat still. One of the men finally acknowledged her. A partner from Boston, gray-haired, kind eyes. He smiled in her direction during a lull. You're from the compliance side, right? He asked. She didn't correct him. Something like that, she said. He nodded, satisfied, and turned back to Rhett. That was the moment she became invisible. Not ignored, erased. They spoke over her twice. Once when she shifted her chair, another man moved his laptop onto the table space in front of her without asking. When introductions were made for a latecomer, her name wasn't included. Rhett referred to her as support staff when someone asked who she was. She didn't correct that either. But her fingers moved across the tablet. Slow. Deliberate. Like she was marking something down that couldn't be unmarked. The room didn't notice. They were too busy congratulating themselves. By the time the deal summary appeared on screen, everyone was smiling. Numbers looked good. Partnerships locked. Government approvals nearly finalized. This was the victory lap. Rhett stood, stretching his arms like a man who'd just won something. Gentlemen, he said, grinning. I think we're done here. Chairs scraped. Jackets were straightened. Hands reached across the table for the ritual, the closing handshake that sealed billions. Aurelia stood too. She stepped forward. Not aggressive. Not hesitant. Just, present. And she extended her hand again. This time, every man in the room saw it. Rhett looked down at her hand like it was evidence of something distasteful. His smile thinned. I already told you, he said, voice flat. I don't shake hands with Blacky. Let's keep this professional. The word professional hung in the air like smoke from a gun. One man flinched. Another looked at the floor. Nobody spoke. Aurelia held her hand there for 3 more seconds. Then she lowered it, picked up her tablet, and walked toward the door. No goodbye. No glance back. Just the soft click of her heels on marble, then the door closing behind her. The room exhaled. Someone laughed nervously. Well, that was awkward. Rhett shrugged. She'll get over it. But in the hallway, Aurelia was already making a call. Her voice was calm. Clinical. Execute the withdrawal, she said. A pause. All of it. What did she just set in motion? The call lasted 18 seconds. Aurelia stood near the elevator, tablet tucked under one arm, phone pressed to her ear. Her tone never shifted. No anger. No satisfaction. Just instruction. Confirmed, she said. Full exposure. No warnings. She ended the call. Then made another. This one to someone in Washington, D.C. The conversation was shorter. 4 sentences. All of them quiet. When she hung up, her phone buzzed twice. Acknowledgements coming in. Dominoes starting to tip in rooms she'd never need to enter. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside, pressed the button for the lobby, and checked her watch. 11 minutes. That's how long it would take for the first notification to reach Rhett's team. She didn't smile. Didn't exhale in relief. She just stood there, hands folded, watching the floor numbers descend in silence. Back in the conference room, everything still felt fine. Rhett was shaking hands now, working the room. A partner from San Francisco clapped him on the shoulder. Another joked about drinks later. The deal was done. Signed, sealed, and ready for the press release his team had already drafted. Then a phone buzzed. Not loud. Just a vibration against the table. The man nearest to it glanced down. His face didn't change, but his hand moved faster than it should have. He unlocked the screen, read something, then stood up without excusing himself. Another phone lit up. Then another. Rhett was mid-sentence when his own phone started vibrating. Once. Twice. 3 times in rapid succession. He frowned, pulling it from his pocket. The subject line made him stop talking. Funding status update, urgent. He opened it. His jaw tightened. Around the table, whispers started. Low at first. Then louder. Men leaned toward each other, screens glowing between them like tiny emergencies. What's going on? Someone asked. Rhett didn't answer. He was scrolling now, faster, his thumb moving down the screen like he was searching for the part that made sense. But there wasn't one. A funding column that had been green 2 hours ago was now red. Not pending. Not delayed. Withdrawn. He refreshed the page. Still red. Get me Paulson, he snapped at his assistant. She was already dialing. Across the table, the Boston partner stood abruptly. I just got a flag from our finance team. They're saying the primary tranche was pulled. That's impossible, Rhett said. We had commitments. We had soft commitments, someone corrected. No, Rhett shot back. We had locked terms. I saw the signatures. But the room was unraveling now. Phones pressed to ears. Voices rising. Someone said the word liability. Another said review. Rhett's assistant returned, pale. Paulson's not answering, she said. But his office sent a memo. It just hit our inbox. What does it say? She hesitated. Read it, Rhett demanded. She swallowed. It says the consortium is withdrawing full backing effective immediately. No explanation. Just, exit terms and a termination clause. The room went silent. How much? Someone whispered. She didn't want to answer. Rhett's voice dropped. How much? 4 billion. The number sat in the air like a body nobody wanted to move. Rhett stared at his phone. Then at the door Aurelia had walked through. His face changed. Not anger. Not yet. Realization. Who was she? It took 9 minutes for someone to say her name. The compliance officer, a man named Davis who never spoke during meetings, stood near the back of the room with his laptop open. His face had gone the color of old paper. Rhett, he said quietly. Everyone turned. That woman, Davis continued. The one who just left. What about her? Rhett snapped. Davis swallowed. She wasn't compliance. She wasn't staff. The room leaned in. Then who was she? The San Francisco partner asked. Davis's fingers were shaking as he turned his laptop around. On the screen was a corporate filing. Buried 6 layers deep in subsidiaries and offshore entities. At the top of the ownership chain was a name most of them had never heard before. Aurelia Knox. She represents a private consortium, Davis said. They don't advertise. They don't pitch. They observe. Observe what? Someone asked. Fitness, Davis said. Character. Risk alignment. Rhett's face hardened. You're telling me she was here to evaluate us? I'm telling you she was here to decide whether the 4 billion stayed in play. The room went cold. She has that kind of authority? The Boston partner asked. Davis nodded. She is the authority. The consortium doesn't move without her sign-off. If she walks, the money walks. Rhett's hands curled into fists. Then get her back. She's already gone, Davis said. Then call her. Email her. I don't care. Fix this. Davis closed his laptop slowly. I don't think you understand. She didn't leave because she was offended. She left because she made her decision. What decision? Davis looked him in the eye. That you failed. The words hit like a verdict. Rhett turned toward the window, his reflection staring back at him in the glass. Behind him, phones were still buzzing. Men were still whispering. But all he could see was her face. Calm. Unflinching. The hand she'd extended. Twice. He'd thought she was nobody. He'd thought wrong. But the damage was already spreading. In New York, a regulatory board received an anonymous tip. In Miami, a journalist got a leaked memo. In Seattle, a partner firm quietly filed an exit notice. And in the lobby of the building, Aurelia Knox walked through the front doors into the cold September air. She didn't look back. Didn't need to. The consequences were already in motion. How far would the fallout reach? By the next morning, the news had teeth. It started small. A financial blog out of Dallas mentioned turbulence in a major infrastructure deal. No names yet. Just whispers. The kind that made people refresh their browsers. Then a reporter in Washington picked it up. She had better sources. Her article named Rhett's firm directly. Mentioned the withdrawal. Quoted an unnamed insider who said the exit wasn't financial, it was ethical. That word, ethical, changed everything. By noon, the story was on Bloomberg. By 2, it was trending. Rhett sat in his office on the 43rd floor, staring at his phone like it had betrayed him. His PR team was in damage control mode. Phones ringing. Statements being drafted. Lawyers on standby. But none of it mattered. The consortium wasn't returning calls. Aurelia Knox wasn't answering emails. And the $4 billion was gone. One of his senior partners knocked, then entered without waiting. "We've got a problem," he said. "Another one?" Rhett's voice was sharp. "3 more backers are asking questions. They want to know why the consortium pulled out. If we don't have an answer, they're going to assume the worst. Then tell them it was a misunderstanding. They're not buying it. Someone leaked the recording." Rhett froze. "What recording?" The partner set his phone on the desk. Pressed play. Rhett's own voice filled the room. "I don't shake hands with Blacky. Then again. Let's keep this professional." The audio was clean. Clear. Unmistakable. Rhett's throat tightened. Where did this come from? "Someone in the room," the partner said. "Could have been anyone. Could have been her." Rhett slammed his hand on the desk. "She recorded me." "We don't know. But it doesn't matter now. It's out there. And it was spreading. Across social media. Across news outlets. Across every network that thrived on powerful men falling from grace." By evening, Rhett's name was attached to words he couldn't erase. Racist. Bigot. Dinosaur. His firm issued an apology. Carefully worded. Vetted by 3 lawyers. "We regret any offense caused and remain committed to diversity and inclusion." It satisfied no one. Because the damage wasn't just reputational. It was structural. A board member resigned. A partnership in Los Angeles dissolved. A government contract was quietly postponed pending further review. And in a quiet office across the city, Aurelia Knox sat with her team, reviewing the outcomes on a projection screen. She didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. Just nodded once. "That's sufficient," she said. Her assistant glanced at her. "There's more if you want it. We could push further." Aurelia shook her head. "No. This wasn't about destruction. It was about correction. And if he tries to come back?" Aurelia's eyes didn't leave the screen. "He won't," she said. "Men like him don't recover from being seen." She closed her laptop. And for the first time in 2 days, she exhaled. Not in relief. In completion. But the question no one was asking yet was the one that mattered most. What happens when power finally learns it's not untouchable? The envelope arrived on a Thursday. Plain. White. No return address. Rhett's assistant brought it to his office along with the rest of the morning mail. She set it on his desk without comment, but her hand hesitated before she let go. "What?" Rhett asked, not looking up. "That one came by courier," she said. "Hand-delivered. They wouldn't say who sent it." He waved her off. She left. Rhett stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No letterhead. No signature. Just 3 lines typed in the center. "You had 2 chances to do the right thing. You chose neither. Consequences are not punishments. They are corrections." His hands tightened around the paper. He knew who sent it. That same afternoon, his lead investor called. The one who'd been with him since the Miami expansion. The one who never wavered. "I'm out," the man said. No preamble. No negotiation. "You can't be serious," Rhett said. "I'm serious. My board won't touch this. The optics are poison." "This is about optics." "No," the man said quietly. "This is about character. And I should have seen it sooner." The line went dead. Rhett sat alone in his office as the sun dipped lower. Outside, the city moved like it always did. Oblivious. Unconcerned. But inside that building, everything was crumbling. A junior partner submitted his resignation. A major client in Boston requested a contract review. The board scheduled an emergency meeting. And Rhett, for the first time in 30 years, felt the ground shift under him. He thought about calling her Aurelia. He thought about apologizing. Explaining. Offering something. But his pride wouldn't let him. And deep down, he knew it wouldn't matter. The decision had already been made. The question now was how much more he'd lose before it stopped. How does a man recover when the world stops believing in him? 3 weeks later, Rhett's name disappeared from the Forbes list. Not because of the scandal. Because the money was gone. Investors pulled out in waves. Partnerships dissolved. Government contracts were reassigned. The firm that had once employed 200 people across 4 cities now operated with a skeleton crew out of a single floor in New York. Rhett tried to rebuild. He gave interviews. Hired consultants. Launched a rebranding campaign with the word integrity in the tagline. It didn't work. Because people weren't interested in redemption. They were interested in receipts. And the receipts were everywhere. The audio clip had been dissected on podcasts. Analyzed in think pieces. Played on loop in business school ethics classes as an example of what not to do. His face became a symbol. Not of wealth. Not of power. Of what happens when you mistake silence for permission. Meanwhile, Aurelia Knox was in Seattle. She sat in a conference room on the 30th floor of a glass tower overlooking the water. Around the table were 8 people. All of them capable. All of them vetted. This was a different deal. A clean one. Renewable energy. Community investment. Transparent governance. The CEO was a woman named Dominique Reeves. Mid-40s. Sharp. Respectful. When Aurelia entered, Dominique stood and extended her hand. Aurelia took it. "Thank you for being here," Dominique said. "Thank you for inviting me," Aurelia replied. They sat. The meeting began. No games. No ego. No tests. Just competence meeting competence. By the end of the hour, the consortium had committed $3 billion. Not because Dominique begged. Because she earned it. Afterward, Dominique walked Aurelia to the elevator. "I heard what happened in New York," she said carefully. Aurelia glanced at her. "Did you?" "I just want you to know," Dominique continued, "that what you did mattered. Not just to you. To a lot of people who've been in rooms like that." Aurelia pressed the button for the lobby. "I didn't do it for applause," she said. "I know," Dominique replied. "That's why it mattered." The elevator doors opened. Aurelia stepped inside, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a small smile. Not of victory. Of clarity. Because power doesn't announce itself. It just moves. And the people who understand that are the ones who shape the world quietly. But back in New York, Rhett was about to learn one final lesson. What happens when the consequences don't stop? Chapter 8. The subpoena came on a Monday. It wasn't from a competitor. Wasn't from the media. It was from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Rhett's lawyers tried to keep it quiet, but leaks don't respect NDAs. By Tuesday afternoon, the news was everywhere. Federal investigation launched into Calderon Holdings. The details were vague. Something about financial disclosures. Misrepresented assets. Offshore entities that didn't match public filings. None of it had anything to do with Aurelia. But the timing was suspicious. Because powerful people don't fall from one punch. They fall because the first punch reveals the cracks. And once people start looking, they find everything. Rhett's legal team scrambled. Depositions were scheduled. Documents were subpoenaed. Former employees were interviewed. And slowly, the facade came down. It turned out the infrastructure deals weren't as clean as advertised. The tax incentives weren't as legal as promised. The government relationships weren't relationships, they were arrangements. And arrangements don't survive scrutiny. Within 6 months, Rhett's empire was gone. Not damaged. Gone. The firm dissolved. Assets liquidated. His name became a case study in business schools under a section titled, When Arrogance Meets Accountability. He tried to disappear. Moved to a quieter city. Took meetings under different names. Pitched smaller deals to people who didn't know his history. But the internet has a long memory. And every time someone searched his name, the first result was the same. Audio clip. 2 sentences. 11 words. I don't shake hands with Blacky. He would never escape it. Because some mistakes don't fade. They calcify. And the world moves on without you. But the question that haunted him most, late at night, when the silence pressed in, wasn't about money. It was simpler. What if he'd just shaken her hand? Would any of this have happened? 2 years later, Aurelia stood on a stage in Washington, D.C. It was a private event. Invitation only. No cameras. No press. Just 200 of the most influential people in finance, policy, and infrastructure. She wasn't there to receive an award. She was there to give a speech. The room quieted as she approached the podium. She didn't use notes. Power, she began, is not what you take. It's what you're trusted with. The room leaned in. For too long, we've measured success by accumulation. By who controls the most. Who owns the most. Who dominates the most. She paused. But control is not leadership. And wealth is not wisdom. Her voice was calm. Steady. But every word landed like a stone in still water. The people who shape the future are not the loudest. They're the ones who understand that every decision carries weight. That every interaction is an evaluation. That respect is not a favor, it's a requirement. She looked out at the audience. Some faces were familiar. Others she'd never met. But they were all listening. 2 years ago, I walked out of a room where I was disrespected. Not because I was unprepared. Not because I was unqualified. But because someone believed my presence didn't matter. She let that sit. He was wrong. And the cost of that mistake wasn't just his. It was structural. It was cultural. It was a reminder that the people we trust with power must be worthy of it. Silence. We can't build a better system by protecting the old one. We build it by holding everyone, especially those at the top, accountable. She stepped back from the podium. The applause started slow. Then built. But Aurelia didn't stay for it. She walked off the stage, out the side exit, and into the cool night air. Her work wasn't about applause. It never had been. It was about making sure the next person who walked into a room like that wouldn't have to endure what she did. Because change doesn't happen in headlines. It happens in decisions. And the people who make those decisions quietly are the ones who change the world. But the story doesn't end here. Because power always shifts. And the question is always the same. Who gets to hold it next? 5 years after that day in the conference room, Rhett Calderon was gone. Not dead. Just irrelevant. He lived in a small town outside of Austin now. Worked as a consultant for mid-level real estate firms. The kind that didn't ask too many questions. He kept his head down. Avoided the news. Didn't talk about the past. But every now and then, someone would recognize his name. And the conversation would end before it started. Meanwhile, Aurelia's consortium had grown. Not louder. Not flashier. Just more effective. They funded clean energy projects in 12 states. Backed women-led startups that traditional investors ignored. Partnered with community developers in cities like Detroit and Philadelphia. And every deal came with the same requirement. Character mattered. Integrity wasn't optional. Respect was non-negotiable. It wasn't a perfect system. But it was better. And slowly, the landscape changed. More firms adopted similar standards. More boards required ethics reviews. More investors asked questions that used to be considered soft. Because one woman walking out of one room had proven something powerful. Consequences are real. And silence is not weakness. It's strategy. Aurelia never spoke about Rhett publicly. Never gave interviews about that day. Never wrote a book or did a TED Talk. She didn't need to. Her work spoke for itself. And the people who mattered, the ones building the next generation of businesses, policies, and systems, knew her name. Not because she was loud. Because she was effective. Years later, a young woman walked into her first boardroom. She was nervous. Underprepared. Out of place. A man at the head of the table looked at her and said something dismissive. But another man, older, wiser, interrupted. "We don't do that here," he said firmly. "Not anymore." The young woman didn't know why. Didn't know the history. But she felt the shift. And that shift, that tiny, quiet, unannounced shift, was Aurelia's legacy. Not a headline. Not a monument. Just a room where respect was no longer optional. And that, in the end, was worth more than $4 billion. Because money moves. But principles endure. And the people who stand for something, even when it costs them everything, are the ones who shape the future. Rhett learned that too late. Aurelia knew it all along. And the world kept turning. But now, it turned a little differently. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because we've got more stories that inspire, challenge, and remind you that power isn't about who's loudest, it's about who's right. Don't miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.